one thing that I'm doing, because I really want to speak to where everyone is like if you leave here today with a thought like, question pops up, whatever, write it down. There's a bowl at the bottom of the steps, and uh, we'll speak to it. Yeah, so just jot it down. You can be anonymous. No one needs to know. And we'll speak to it another week. So this was in the kill. It was the, busy, 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 rush, rush, rush. That's kind of where we are right now, a lot of people, right? And we've been talking a lot about choices because, bottom line is we're given this bucket of choices for absolutely every moment that we're alive. And oftentimes, we're handing our choices away, which with each choice, we're handing away a little bit of power and a little bit. So this is all like firming those choices up and understanding where you're dropping them, right? And time, is definitely one of those things that when we look at time, time is infinite. We choose to make it linear. We choose to fill it up. And why? Why do we have that need to be so busy? What are we trying to accomplish with that? Because I think oftentimes there's that train to follow down. Why? And I think oftentimes with women especially, we're really taught to be nice, and we're taught to do, and we're taught to give, and we're in sacrifice. Oftentimes we're not even laying down an energy that's a giving energy. We're just doing. And possibly, just possibly, usurping the doing that was meant for someone else, where the energy would be a blessing versus a burden.
So you're saying we're taking over something it's really someone else's.
Someone else's. Oftentimes, like if I bump up against something and I see a situation, if I don't feel like, boom, dive in, if I feel any sort of trepidation at all, the first question I say is this mine to affect? Because, yeah, oftentimes we're flying in. Women, we don't have any edges, right? We've been taught to just do, right? And we just do for everyone, and we're burdened by it, and we're annoyed by it, and we're feeling disrespected by it, and we're feeling victimized by it. Well, that's not doing anybody any good. Because, truly, like anytime you're like, you've had people offer to do you a favor and then they come and they're like in this weird energy and you're like, wow, I wish I would have just done that myself. Thank you, but I wish I would have done that myself because I feel a burden to you right now. I don't feel like it's a blessing that you're giving me. I feel like I'm being a burden. Like you're feeling obligated. Exactly. And when we're in that place, nothing good comes from that. Nothing good comes from that. So that's the very first question I ask. Anytime I bump up against it, anytime an opportunity comes my way. Because also, think about this. If you're filling your time with what's the word I'm trying to say? Non-profitable, nothing that's uplifting you. Like your time is just full of stuff. What if that opportunity shows up that's the diamond in the rough and you don't have time for it? You don't have time for it.
What if you're too busy sitting on your couch not doing anything?
Well, there's that too. And that's another choice. That's totally another choice. And if, that's when you start saying yes. I have to do that. I have to do that myself.
But then, do I feel guilty for not doing anything?
Why? Why do you?
Because I can look around and see all the stuff I should be doing.
And what is the stuff you should be doing?
Cleaning my floors.
And what difference is that going to make tomorrow?
It doesn't.
Exactly.
The clothes have been sitting there since last week. And it doesn't hurt anybody. Exactly. It's like,
it doesn't hurt anybody.
Is anybody going to die if this doesn't
No.
happen?
No. So what are you doing instead? Are you having quality time with your kids?
No, because I don't have any kids.
Okay. So what are you doing with your time? Because that is a fun thing, right? Because there was probably 7, 8 years ago, I was sitting right here on this porch, and I was just felt like I'd been on that treadmill, just running and doing and, raising my kids, and everybody was busy and blah, 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 right? And at the end of the day, you're sitting there and you're like, what do I have to show for all that doing? I want off. I want off this treadmill, And it's interesting. Once I made a declaration around that and said, I don't want all this unnecessary doing, I suddenly had time. And then it was like, okay, now I have all this time. What can I do with it constructive that's going to be of benefit to myself and others? There's that, right? You just have to decide. And, joy. Truly, I think that we did an exercise a few weeks ago about, let's make a list of all the things you don't like and a list of all the things you do like. And most of the time, we can only come up with a few on the do side. We know exactly what we don't like, what we don't want, what we don't, and that's exactly like time. Every possibility for every moment is happening at exactly the same time. It depends on where you choose to look. Again, the choices, right? So it's all about where you choose to look. I was going through back to Junebug, and there was all this going on with my family. And I found it very interesting that if I didn't acknowledge or interact with it, my life went on, and I wasn't even aware that the fire was burning, right? Until I looked there, right? So I'm standing out in this field, and this is how God talks to me. He talks to me through nature all the time. So I'm standing out in this field. I'd been meditating, and I was just like, what do I do with my mother? She's making me insane, right? And I stand up after meditating, and the sun was shining. It was glorious. There was this glorious rainbow. And when I turned around this way, black was like a line down the sky. And I was like, okay, storm, sunshine. Storm, sunshine. I think I'm going to look this way, right? Because standing over here, life's great. It's all about where you choose to look. Everybody's got the same amount of time. The guy that's making $1 bazillion and us. They all have the same amount of time. So it's the strategy and what you're doing with it, right? A lot of times we fill our time up with doing because of that need to be needed. A lot of times doing's very egoic, right? It's very egoic. It's like, okay, I'm doing all this. Is anybody noticing? Am I going to get this? Am I getting money? How is that? There's always some sort of sub reason why we're doing. And when you trace that why back, you have to say, okay, well, if, in the end, this doing is my choice. So is it advancing me in any way, or is it not? Right? Because oftentimes we're filling the time up with doing because we don't want to be with ourselves. We don't want to be with ourselves. And if you don't want to be with you, why would anyone else? It's all about how we show up. And it is with time, too. It's about how we interact with it. I remember when Emily first started college, and I had started my Chopra train, and she was just bowled over. She was in the fashion program, working 24 hours a day and not getting done, not being successful. And all I heard was there was not enough time. And we sat down and talked, and I said, Emily, now really, when you focus your energy on having lack, you will have lack. It's like the rich person that's poor, right? It's the same exact idea with time. If you're declaring you don't have enough time, you're not going to have enough time. But stop and think about the time in between, the space in between you're doing, right? If you start focusing there and go, oh, I have time right now. I absolutely have time right now. What am I going to do with it? How fun is that? I maybe have 20 minutes right now. I think I'm going to go for a walk, right? And then you're starting to acknowledge where you do have time. Because the more you start turning there, the more time you'll have. It's funny how the universe works like that. Totally. If you're looking at lack, you will have lack up to your eyeballs. You know, you've got people that have no money that are the richest people on the planet. Right? And we've got rich people that have money coming out their ears that are living in poverty. That constant need to get more, because, you know, the more you have, the more you fear of losing,